Good morning. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. Not content with letting me loose yesterday on the comeback. They've let me loose again, Ryan. Don't know how good that is, but I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan back on the Celtic Way podcast. It seems like ages. By the way, I'm Tony Haggerty, in case you didn't know, but I'm joined by Ryan McGinley. Ryan, how are you, sir?
Things are good. Yeah, it's been a while since you and I were on a podcast together. I'm actually trying to think back to the last podcast that we did. It was probably after a league game about a month ago or so. So it's great to have you back, Tony. Great to have this duo back once again, and looking forward to discussing all the latest news today.
Good to be back. Now, first and foremost, we have a new sponsor and there's some housekeeping to do, so we shall do that. Celtic Way is now sponsored by It's Simply Furniture, and they're located in Hillington, Glasgow. And It's Simply Furniture is an independent brand dedicated to bringing luxury and contemporary style into homes across the UK. With over a decade of experience in furniture retail, they meticulously source only the finest pieces curated for quality, comfort and timeless designs. From elegant sofas to statement dining sets, their handpicked collections offer exceptional value without compromising on style. Their dedicated team ensures that your furniture is delivered with care right to your doorstep. And if you want to see this beauty up close, why don't you visit It's Simply Furniture's stunning showroom and mention the Celtic Way, and you'll be in for a special in-store discount. And all the links to the socials are in the description of this podcast. Now, Ryan, Sebastian Tounekti, you were there at Rugby Park on Sunday. He had a wonderful debut. He was speaking to the media yesterday. I'm just going to ask you first and foremost, you saw him in the flesh. Did you enjoy that performance?
Here comes my first cliche of the podcast, and John's been laughing with me. May I add, he's been laughing with me when I talk about. Yeah, I must be catching some of your ways, Tony, with some of your catchphrases, but I think I've got my own in terms of passing the eye test. Sebastian Tounekti certainly passed the eye test on Sunday afternoon on a difficult surface, may I add, at Rugby Park. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Not everything came off for him, but I liked his attitude and his application and the fact that he kept on going, and he could smell blood as well coming up against James Brown. He certainly... I'm not even going to go there with his name and putting some tropes in there. People in the comments can do that, but he was really having a really decent performance against James Brown. So much so that they had to double up on him a couple of times because they understood how much of a threat he was down that left-hand side. And yeah, it was just a really impactful debut, and hopefully more to come from the Tunisian who was speaking to the media yesterday.
He was indeed, Ryan. I mentioned yesterday to John that I loved his attitude as well. He attacked his fullback. He did it repetitively, and that's what I want to see from a winger. And my only takeout from that was, are you watching Balakusha? Because I said Balakusha should be studying that and saying, okay, that's how you play as a winger. That's what to do. I'm not having a go at Balakusha. Just if you're comparing and contrasting the wingers, one was heavily involved, one really wanted to be involved, one was hungry for the ball and showed a real desire. Even when it didn't work, he still didn't hide. And I want to see more from Balakusha, but again, I'll cut him some slack because it's early days in his Celtic career as well. He's coming back from injury and stuff like that. So, but I think everybody was impressed with Tounekti, but don't want to build him up too much. It's a decent start. It's now consistency that we're looking for. But the headline in this podcast is Sebastian Tounekti's American dream at Celtic. And he was speaking to the media yesterday. And that American dream, Ryan, being he wants to represent Tunisia in the 2026 World Cup finals. So he said this right at the end. I have one goal to play at the World Cup next summer. I think that playing for Celtic has strengthened my chances of doing that. When you play for a massive club like this, it puts you in a stronger position at the national team level. I want to stay at Celtic for many years, and I want to stay here and take big steps. Ryan, my big impression in that is I think that's a win-win for Celtic. This is a guy that's going to bust a gut to get into the Tunisia World Cup squad, and he wants to impress. He's desperate to impress, and that will give him that extra spring and impetus. and a goal at the end of this season, that's a win-win for Celtic, because he wants to make sure he's on that flight to America and Canada, Ryan, and I think that's good news for Celtic.
Yeah, and there is an easier route for him as well if he is to get that initial. I know he's had a couple of appearances here or there for Tunisia. It was kind of in and out of the squad. I know he's made maybe I think it's like 2-3 appearances for the senior squad, because his career's been like that. He's struggled to really find a place to hold down, but it seems as if he's got that now. First at Hammarby, where he was a first team player, he was arguably their best player, and now at Celtic, where he looks to make an immediate impact. I think for him, his first target, and this might go against what a lot of Celtic supporters want, unfortunately, due to the timing of it. If he can get into that African Cup of Nations squad for Tunisia, because Tunisia have qualified for that as well, then it sets him in really good stead for the World Cup, because if you're in that for a major tournament, then you're more likely to be trusted by your manager when it comes to the World Cup in the summer. Now, the World Cup's taking place in the USA and Canada. Celtic already have a couple of representatives you would expect, one certainly being Alistair Johnston, more on him later on in this podcast, potentially Austin Trusty and Cameron Carter-Vickers, even though they've been out of Maurizio Pochettino's plans at the moment, the two of them. So that's something for them to work on as the season goes on, to try and force their way back into that side. But for Tounekti, it's a real opportunity for him. I think Tunisia are one of those rising teams that are getting better year on year. A real opportunity, and it's a position that's there for the taking for him. If he can do well at Celtic, then I've got no doubt that Tunisia will come calling, and they'll come calling for that AFCON and the World Cup. Although AFCON brings in a whole host of problems, given the fact that it's at the end of December, start of January, where Celtic have quite a volume of games that it could hinder Celtic. So you would hope that they're well stocked in that area. The good thing is, I would say, is that they've got a lot of left wingers at the moment that can maybe fill in that gap. But then you bring in Balikwisha, who could potentially be called up for Democratic Republic of Congo, and that brings up more problems. So, yeah, as much as you want to see that international recognition for these players, it can provide problems to European sides that are plying their trade in different competitions at that time of year.
I think AFCON becomes a swear word, Ryan, when it's probably smack bang in the middle of what the manager described as the ultramarathon with these games. So we will cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think everybody is in agreement that Tounekti had an impressive first game for Celtic. Some comments here talking about Balikwisha. Nobody's writing Balikwisha off. He's had 2 games. First one, difficult baptism of fire against Rangers at Ibrox, and then at Rugby Park. But yeah, nice there you go.
Des Harkin got my drift when I saw. I was like, the headlines write themselves when it comes to that name, and Tounekti as well. So
yeah, indeed. But I think all Celtic supporters are just hoping to see more from Balikwisha, but they will cut him some slack, and they will understand that he has been injured for a while and he's getting back into the groove. So hopefully that comes soon. But nobody is having a go at Balikwisha. I was just sort of making the point that in terms of the wingers on Sunday, one impressed more than the other, if you're doing a simple eye test. And I think that's fair comment, is it not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree, but I would also throw in the fact that he's playing out of position as well. Balikwisha, he's playing on the right, a position that he's not really. I mean, he's played a couple of games there for Royal Antwerp, maybe a few for Standard Liège as well prior to that, but he's a very versatile player, and I think that can sometimes hurt players if they've got more than one position. It means that the manager can be quite happy to put them in different areas in order to accommodate. Now, right now at this moment, I would rather accommodate Tounekti at left wing rather than Balikwisha at left wing, just given that debut performance that we saw from the Tunisian. He looked so positive. There was a point in the first half in particular, I'm not sure if it was up against James Brown, but he immediately dropped the shoulder. Didn't really do too much, but dropped the shoulder and totally beat his man in the first half. And I think once he had that in the first half, the second half, you could see him really going back and back again to try and beat his man once again. I like a winger that knows when he's got the beating of his marker, and if he has that confidence, the last player to have that for Celtic, out with Kuhn on the right hand side, would be Jota in his first spell at Celtic. If Celtic can distribute those player beating wingers in different areas, then that'll be brilliant for the club, because as Roger said after the game, he's a Celtic winger. Celtic wingers are expected to beat their man with some skill and get bottoms off seats in the stands, and he's certainly a player that could do that.
Call me old-fashioned, Ryan, but I like a player that gets to the byline, puts in crosses, and likes to beat a man, I think, and, do the world-class basics as a winger, basically, and that's get the ball down and you'll get your head down, drop shoulders, and take players on, and that's what I like to see about Tounekti, and I'm sure Balakusha will pick that up very, very quickly, if not already, and I'm sure the manager might have said to him, this is what we're after, this kind of type of performance, and he will improve, no doubt, moving forward. A couple of other things that Tounekti said. He said all the right things, Ryan, doesn't he? They always seem to do in these situations, but he also said, I'm an ambitious guy and I want to improve in every game. I'm a winger who likes to attack, likes to dribble, likes to take on players. You will never see me pass it back if I have a chance to go against a player. I will always try to make something happen. Hopefully in the future that leads to a goal or an assist. I'm just excited and happy to be here. I have so much more to learn and to develop. I think I'm in the best place to do that. Everyone knows about the coach, about Brendan Rodgers. He's been at top clubs and he's worked with top players. As a player, it's a dream to work with a coach like that. I know that I'm in the right place to develop and take the next step. Do I feel this is my time now? 100%. When a club like Celtic is interested in you, you have to do it. Interesting, right?
Yeah, and the comment has been mentioned by a couple of people, but he's certainly a player that could have helped Celtic in the Champions League qualifiers. There's always going to be that held against them. Yeah, he's just a player that Celtic have missed recently. Since Jota got injured and since Kuhn left the club, they've missed that one-on-one winger that can beat a man. Yes, Daizen Maeda can score goals from the left, but I would say he's more of a wide forward than a winger, whereas Tounekti looks like a winger. He looks like he wants to beat his man. He looks as if he wants to make things happen, whether that be a goal or an assist. I think that's maybe an area that he needs to work on, his end delivery, his end product, because a couple of shots that he snatched at, but that'll come. If you can do all the things such as beating your man with that skill, the confidence to drive forward and get to the byline, then I think working with good coaches like Brendan Rodgers, like John Kennedy, like Adam Sadler, they can all help him get to that next level that he's talking about. It seems as if after a bit of a nomadic career, and I was looking at where he's been at Groningen on loan, he was at Bodo Glimt, I think it was Haugesund as well in Norway before going to Hammarby. It's been a pretty nomadic career so far for a 23-year-old who's just turned 23, so he's been struggling a bit, much like Benjamin Nygren, you could add, but it seems as if they've now got a spot that they can really hone their craft, hone their skills, and become that player that, Kjetil Knutsen believed that he was going to be as a young player, because he was playing for Bodo Glimt as like an 18, 19-year-old. So that talent was clearly there. It's all about Brendan Rodgers now honing that talent and making it as good as it can be, and doing it justice, really, as well.
I think that adds to the frustration, right? You touched upon the Champions League calamity, that a player like that was the two legs against Kairat Almaty. It was a first goal's the winner, wasn't it? And I think a player like that would have helped you create a hell of a lot more. So, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but it just adds to the heightened sense of frustration that the Celtic fans feel about not getting these players in for that deadline and for matches of that importance.
Yeah, it's failure to prepare is preparing to fail. It's such a cliche. There's my second one of the podcast, but it's so true. If you don't speculate to accumulate in terms of building a strong team, then I know, just rhyme them all off. But they all ring true, Tony. They're all the same, and we've been repeating ourselves year on year because they all ring true at the end of the day, and these things come back to bite you, unfortunately. Kairat, the game was crying out for a match winner from Celtic, but there was absolutely nothing in that away game that would suggest that Celtic were going to win the game. It looked as if it was a game after about an hour that was going to penalties. There was that resigned look on the players' faces as they were playing that this is a turgid affair. It's going to turn into a lottery when it goes to the penalty shootout. You need a match winner in games like that. When Jota's not there, when Nicholas Kuhn's not there because he's left the club, you've not got these match winners on the wing. Thankfully now it looks as if Celtic have got a couple in Tounekti and Balikwisha when he comes good. I'm not too worried about Balikwisha. I think he will come good because there's a reason why Celtic have been scouting him for over a year. The numbers don't lie. When he's playing for Antwerp, he tends to make things happen. I think the next guy that we talk about, in Alistair Johnston, will help Balikwisha when he's playing out on the right as well. So once he returns, you'll maybe see the best of him on the right-hand side. But I've got to give a special shout, and I didn't really speak about him on Sunday afternoon, but I thought that Colby Donovan slotted in seamlessly in the Celtic team. It was one of my first times watching him in person, and just from watching him at Rugby Park, you can see, much like Dane Murray, I would say, that he doesn't look like an academy player. He looks well-rounded, he looks built, he looks like an adult in the team rather than some academy players coming through and looking like, not children, but youth players and academy players, and you can see the difference in their body shape and their intensity. But Colby Donovan didn't look out of place there on Sunday, and I thought he'd had a really good performance, really steady performance. Not anything outstanding, but he just did his job, and that was what was expected of him. But I do think that once Alistair Johnston comes back, it will help Balikwisha in that role on right wing.
Yeah, I mean, Colby Donovan was involved in the lead up.
Oh, I think you've muted yourself, Tony.
I said Colby Donovan was involved in the lead up to the goal, wasn't he? The penalty. Can you hear me, Ryan? No? No, you can't hear me? No, can you hear me?
I can't hear you, Tony. I don't know if people in the comments can let me know. Oh, Tony's now cut off, so it says that Tony's audio is fine. 2 wee seconds, I'll try and bring him back in. So yeah, just talking about Balikwisha, you know, he's a big player coming into Celtic for £4.5 million in the summer. He's made a couple of appearances, played against Rangers, and then played against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. And I think he struggled in the 2 games. He struggled to really make a big impact, particularly in the game against Kilmarnock. I thought he was largely anonymous, and that's maybe more of a problem than if a player was bad. Because if a player's anonymous, then they're not really having a big impact on proceedings. Tony, you're back.
I'm back. Can you hear me? Yeah.
I'll refresh and come back in because I can't hear you. I think it might be my audio. So you just read out some of the comments.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Appreciate that you're on live and these things happen. But yes, we were talking about Colby Donovan, and yes, I thought Colby Donovan was steady on Sunday. Maybe not seeing what Ryan was seeing, but that's everybody sees the game differently. But I'm pressed enough with Colby Donovan, and he looked decent enough. But we're going to go on to talk about Alistair Johnston in a second. Are you there, Ryan? Can you hear me? Yeah?
I can hear you now. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what was wrong there. Maybe I needed to do a little bit of a refresh, but I couldn't hear you, but I can hear you now, thankfully.
Yeah, I was just saying about Colby Donovan. I said I'll maybe not go as overboard as you, but I think he did all right. He was competent enough. But yeah, we're now about to talk about another fullback, Alistair Johnston, and some positive news, Ryan, regarding Alistair Johnston, who was speaking on the Park the Bus podcast, and he said this when the injury originally happened. I feared the worst, but it's a pretty significant injury still. I'm actually ahead of where I thought I was going to be, but there's still a long way to go. I'm not really going to put a time period on it just yet. I'm just kind of taking it day by day. But the plan is that I honestly feel very good, and that's almost the hardest part of the full thing, is that I feel like I'm ready to go out there and play, but I know there's still a lot of boxes that need to get checked before I can get back to my full level. Alistair Johnston get taken off against Kairat with the hamstring injury, Ryan. So, again, I'm of the opinion that with hamstrings, you take no chances. Don't rush him back. Don't force him back. He will be back in the fullness of time, and it'll be great to have Alistair Johnston back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the positives about Alistair Johnston, I look at the international break, and I know that he wouldn't be playing for them anyway because of his injury. But if he was getting called up, this is all hypothetical. They're all friendlies that Canada are playing at the moment, because Canada have already automatically qualified for a World Cup because they're one of the host nations of the 2026. So I look at that going into next year. Maybe there's more leeway between Jesse Marsh and Celtic and Alistair Johnston in terms of managing his game time for the rest of the season. Don't want him to redo this injury when he does come back into the team. But I want them to take their time. I completely agree with what you're saying. It's important that they don't rush him back and they take their time, because Alistair Johnston is so important, not just on the pitch but off of it as a leader, and I'm sure that he's still got that impact in and around Lennoxtown and Celtic Park when Celtic are playing. Maybe he goes to the away days as well, I'm not too sure on that one, but he's such an important player. I think he's one of the captains in the squad out with Callum McGregor. You've got Callum McGregor, Kieran Tierney, Cameron Carter-Vickers, but I would also put Alistair Johnston in that mix as well. I think he's such an important leader in the team. He understands, he gets it, he gets what it means to play for Celtic. But it's a great opportunity just now for the likes of Tony Ralston, who was in a boot at the weekend. We'll see how his leg is doing ahead of the game against Partick Thistle on Sunday. You've got Sirachi in there that can come in, and you've also got Colby Donovan. So there's players that can come in and make a difference for Celtic in Johnston's absence. But I agree with you, I don't want him rushed at all. I want him to be brought back when he's nothing less than 100% fit and raring to go.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't think with hamstrings now you can't take any kind of risk at all. And as you say, they're kind of stuck with Colby Donovan there and Sirachi, who put in a brilliant cross for Dyson Weeder's opening goal at Rugby Park on Sunday. I think that's been kind of lost in the vortex of everything, but that was a brilliant cross and brilliant run and anticipation by Maida and lovely glancing header.
I thought he had a good game, all in all. I thought he was one of Celtic's better players on Sunday, and I thought he just looked like an experienced pro out there, 27-year-old. You look at his resume, you look at his CV of the teams that he's played for so far in his career, and it's quite the list when you look at even a La Liga team in Levante, but more specifically, the likes of RB Leipzig. He spent a season there, played for both Argentinian teams, both massive Argentinian teams in Boca Juniors and River Plate. Tells you a little bit about him. Bit of a madman if you're playing for those two teams. Don't know if he'll be welcome back in Argentina anytime soon, especially the River Plate side of things, if you know that rivalry between those two sides. But also he played for Galatasaray. So I look at those three teams, River Plate, Boca Juniors and Galatasaray, three really expectant fan bases. They expect to win a lot of games. The fans are onto you if you're not winning games. So he's used to having that pressure, and that can only help his Celtic career. I know he's only there on loan. There's no option to buy, despite what we originally thought was going to be the case was an option to buy, but it was said that it was just a straight loan with no option. For him, it's all about just getting as much game time as he can. I like that Brendan Rodgers said they'll give him 60 minutes. And one of the last contributions he had in the game before he came off was providing that assist to Dyson Maida. And I was talking to John after the game at Rugby Park, and I was saying to him that there was a moment that maybe the cameras missed, where Sirachi puts the ball on a plate for Dyson Maida. It's a great glancing header from Maida, great moment for him, especially with all the comments that have been going about regarding him over the past week or so. But there was a moment where he puts the ball into the box and then he goes and celebrates with Liam Scales, almost as if he's scored. So that just shows you how important an assist is for a player, just as much as a goal is for a striker. For that defender to ping that ball into the box and to find his man and to get an assist. Both Sirachi and Scales gave each other a massive cuddle at the end of that move. And that was great to see, because despite him just being at the club, I think he's only been there a couple of weeks now, already he's got that camaraderie between his fellow defenders and his other players as well. So it's really good to see.
Yeah, that's something that you sort of see when you're there, isn't it, at the game, and maybe cameras don't pick up. But as you say, it's a good thing to see that he's kind of bonding with his fellow teammates and doesn't feel out of it or anything like that. So that's always a joyful thing to watch that in real time. But Ryan, Partick Thistle on Sunday in the League Cup. John and myself touched upon it yesterday about the need to maybe freshen up the midfield. Would you go along with that? Would you expect to see quite a few changes and a lot of team rotation, squad rotation this Sunday? Would you play the likes of Sinazala? Would you bring Engels, Bernardo McCowan into the team? Would you rest McGregor, Hatate and stuff like that?
I think the areas that weren't changed on Sunday will be the areas that are likely changed this Sunday against Partick Thistle. So you look at the core of the team, the central core of the team being the defenders, the midfield, and the striker. I think those positions could all be changed ahead of Sunday's game. But I think the area that I want to see changed the most is midfield, because I still think it's a little bit disjointed. I think you're getting three of the same things. And that midfield three with Cal McGregor, Rio Hatate and Benjamin Negron, all kind of similar players trying to do the same thing, where I want a little bit more robustness in there. Not that you'll maybe need it against Partick Thistle, but I would like to see that tested out and tried out, particularly ahead of the Belgrade game, because I think that's going to be a taxing game, and I think you need that little bit more robustness in the midfield, whether that be Paulo Bernardo, who seems to be so far away from it at the moment, which is quite, not concerning, but I'm a little bit puzzled as to why he's not getting more game time. Same could be said for Arne Engels. There's maybe bigger question marks over the fact that he's not getting as much game time despite being an £11 million signing, but that's probably a debate for another day. For me, one of the first names to come into that team sheet is Sinisalo, because of the precedent that Brendan Rodgers set against Falkirk a few weeks ago. He played Sinisalo in that game. In order to maintain consistency, he's got to play Sinisalo in this game. Otherwise, you're at risk of unsettling a player. If you've told a player that he's going to be the cup goalkeeper, and then you bring in Kasper Schmeichel, who hasn't really put a foot wrong this season thus far, then that you're at a risk of upsetting Sinisalo, because I think he's been afforded more game time by the manager this season. There was great comments that came out at the end of last season about the fact that there was maybe a chance of Sinisalo going out on loan, but then he proved his worth by getting into the first team when Kasper Schmeichel had that shoulder injury, and that proved to Rodgers that he was ready to fight for his place now rather than in a few years' time. So I'd like to see that evolution, that natural evolution happen in the goalkeeping position on Sunday, and that would start by Sinisalo going in there. But I think you could see wholesale changes in those central areas, whether that be centre-back, centre midfield or up front.
I'm going to throw this curveball at you because I know you're a bit of a Rio Hatate fanboy, but he has to come out the team for me, Ryan. I labelled him, I was a bit probably on my high horse yesterday talking about him. I labelled him an imposter yesterday. I wasn't being disrespectful. I was just kind of relating to his recent displays and performances that just haven't been vintage Rio Hatate, nowhere near it. And I feel that he is one for me who could do with being rotated, axed, dropped, call it what you will. But Rio Hatate comes out of that midfield for me because he's not doing enough to warrant a place, a regular starting place in that midfield. In my opinion, others can disagree. I know you like Rio Hatate very much, and I do too, but I'm just not seeing enough. And lots of people are speculating that, like Hatate, like his fellow countryman Maeda, he probably wants away. That's fair enough. But as I say in all of these instances, when people start to say things like that, you have to earn your move, Ryan. You ain't going to earn a move by playing the way Rio Hatate has in the last while.
Yeah, I don't think I thought he started the season well because he had a good opening day. I'm trying to think exactly who Celtic played against. The opening day was it St Mirren that they played. I thought he was one of Celtic's better players on the day, but since then, and I think he's been caught up in the furore of the whole Champions League because he had a couple of really poor performances against FC Kairat. That hasn't helped his cause in terms of his form. For me, I would take him out of the firing line as well, and me being a massive supporter of Hatate and everything that he does, when he's on his game, he's absolutely brilliant. I don't think there's a better midfielder in Scotland when he's on form, because he can do things that no other midfield, certainly in Scotland, can do in terms of his creativity. But for me, I would take him out the firing line as well. And I just think this is a natural game, a natural time to change up the side for players that are in need of more game time. And you can do that while still respecting the opposition, who, by the way, have started the season really well under former Celtic player Mark Wilson. They've had a really good start to the League Cup. They won all 5 of their League Cup games, and I believe they're near the top of the Scottish Championship. So they're doing really well at the moment under Mark Wilson, so fair play to him. For me, I would bring in the likes of Luke McCown. I think Luke McCown's one of my first names on the team sheet for Sunday's game. I think you can trust him in games like this to have an impact. These are the games that you really see the best of Luke McCowan. I feel these domestic games where you're needing a little bit of rotation. You can bring him in knowing that you're going to get at least a 7 out of 10 performance for him, unless the team are playing terribly. But if the team are playing well, then you know that he'll play a big part in that. I remember games last season where he was brought into the lineup and he was arguably one of Celtic's best players. So I would expect the same from him. But the thing is, if you've got options in that midfield, you could see wholesale changes. I don't think they'll take out Callum McGregor because of the fact it's a chance to get into the semi-finals of the League Cup, but I do think those other two positions are up for grabs in the form of Hatate and Benjamin Negron. Maybe Negron might stay in the team, but I would expect if one of the midfielders is to leave the current squad, then it would be Hatate.
Yeah, and I don't exempt McGregor or Negron, not so much from criticism, but they didn't do too much for me either on Sunday to warrant instant selection for this game. I mean, I'd be totally surprised if the manager rotated all three, but certainly two of that three I can see being rotated, Hatate and Negron, for Engels and McCowan possibly. So, but it wouldn't surprise me if you rotated all three, because I thought all three on Sunday were, they were just okay, nothing better than that. And maybe I'm a hard audience, Ryan, but I expect a bit more from a Celtic midfield when they go to Rugby Park. And
on paper, it's their strongest position, Tony. It's their strongest position when you look at squad depth. So it's the area that's underperforming at this moment in time.
Yeah, we're well stocked. So I think Sunday represents an opportunity for those guys who are maybe champing at the bit and are saying to the manager or remind the manager, I'm still here. I can make a positive contribution. Give me a chance. But if he does do that, then they have to perform, Ryan. It's no use them coming on or starting a game and not producing. But I think Partick Thistle was just here for an excellent start to the season. And again, this is not... I don't think any game that Celtic play right now is a game because Celtic aren't firing on all cylinders. So you have to respect the opposition. People saying it's a chance to return to Hampden. It's a chance for Partick Thistle to get to Hampden as well. It cuts both ways for both sides, so I think you have to be mindful of that. The smart money on Celtic to win. But it's been a chore and a bit of a bind watching Celtic up until this point. I'm just waiting for that game where everything clicks. Here's hoping it starts on Sunday and the likes of Tounekti and others shine again.
Yeah, and to be honest, I thought that Celtic were better on Sunday. I thought that a draw would have been a really harsh result, especially given the way that they played in the second half and the way they continued to push forward even until the end. I liked the fact that they didn't let their heads drop after the goal was conceded. Yes, I know they were under the cosh a little bit in Kilmarnock. As I said to you after the game, that I had a little bit of a feeling of that 2-1 game a couple of seasons ago when Nat Phillips played, when Matt O'Reilly scored the opener, then Kilmarnock scored an equaliser and they went on to win the game 2-1. I had that similar sort of feel. But after that 10 minutes, Celtic were pushing for the winner and they got their just rewards in the end. But I thought in the second half particularly, and in some moments in the first half, despite it not being a perfect performance, I did see improvements in the team, and I thought it would have been a pretty harsh result if Celtic were to have dropped points in that game, given the chances. Though they didn't have a lot of clear-cut chances, there was a few blocks and things that happened. They were making things happen, and they deserved their win at the end of the day. And the more you see that penalty decision, the more you believe that it's a penalty. I've watched it, I don't know, 10, 15 times. I was calling it dubious post-match. John wasn't calling it dubious post-match. I'm not calling it dubious a couple of days on. It was a Stonewall penalty, and if it was any other team, they would be screaming for it.
Well, there you go. It wasn't any other team, it was Celtic, but these things even themselves out, Ryan, so we keep getting told, or so we've been told down throughout the years, whatever you choose to believe. But there you go. We shall end it there, Ryan. We'll keep the build up to the Partick Thistle game coming. I think tomorrow you've got the company of John and Josh, is it?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So enjoy that. Guys, over 500 people watching us live on the stream. Thank you very much. Sorry about the gremlins. These things happen when you're doing live shows. But hey, we try and cope with it and deal with it as best as we can. But say thank you to our new sponsor at Simply Furniture as well. Ryan, thank you. It's good to be on with you again, sir. It just seemed like ages since we've been on, but thoroughly enjoyed that. Guys, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be around talking everything Celtic in the lead up to Sunday. Celtic looking to book a place in the League Cup semi-final, as Ryan said. Take care and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, guys, and have a very good day. Cheers.